Good evening and welcome to the May 18th meeting of the Belchertown Select Board. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comments?
None.
None. Anyone online? I'm opening the public comment period. Hearing none, I will close public comment and ask if we have any documents to sign.
We have minutes from May 4th. All were present with the exception of Lisa.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from May 4th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Okay, there are no additions to the agenda. Is Doug on?
He is here.
Hey, Doug,
Hello.
what do you got for us?
What do I got? Well, a black screen so far. There we go. Yes, you should have another purchase and sale agreement in front of you for the Boyce property off Old Farm Road. Yes?
Yes, we have it.
Yes,
Oh, okay. Yes.
we're looking at.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, okay, good. Then I thought maybe everything had frozen. So yes, the Boyces have agreed to this and have signed that. And we got the town meeting vote last week. This one is dependent on our getting a land grant from the state. And that one is due, application is due in July, and Dawn and I and Julie, our new conservation administrator, will be working on that. But again, it's this no risk thing that if we don't get the grant, then we don't do the deal. So that's how we have those set up.
And so is this for information purposes? Or is this
Yeah.
something you want us to
Yeah,
do?
I mean, if you had any questions, I mean, this is 50 acres, parts of 2 parcels that he's cutting houses off of, and then some other couple of forested parcels. And it scores extremely high on a lot of the ecological measures that that get measured. Things like forest integrity, recreational value, and so forth.
And that's
and,
what they're looking
so
for
we
in the
think it's-
grant? Is that what they're looking for in the grant?
How much are we looking for? As much as,
No, is that what they're looking for in the grant?
oh, yeah, that certainly
Okay,
contributes.
great.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, and there's space for parking there, and already some nice trails for people to walk on. So
any discussion?
So I make a motion that we endorse the purchase and sale agreement for the Boyce property at Old Farm Road.
Second?
Do we need to wait until we know if we have the money?
No, we need you to endorse this tonight.
Okay,
The PNS.
yeah, we need, yeah.
oh, I got it. Okay, great. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I noticed on the agenda, there's mention of the Green property.
Yes,
That's off Ware Road, and that was the old farm of the Greens. I'm sure Steve probably knows more history than I do, but over the years, it got turned into mini golf and then a solar field, and the condos are over there and the subdivision, Old Sawmill Road. And this section of land was retained as a specific habitat for wildlife. And so the Greens are donating it to the Conservation Commission.
Oh, that's great.
And I noticed one other thing on your agenda.
Well, I think Nicole had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, we have to vote on this too, but I do have a question on that. So this came before us about a year ago that they were donating property. Why wasn't it all donated at the same time? Was additional property identified?
It wasn't donated for, I don't know the exact reason, but I think there was some holdup with state review or something like that. I'm not entirely certain.
Okay. Do you want me to make a motion?
Sure.
So before we sign this one, all but one of us can sign it. One of the signatures needs a notary. And also, Steve, can you do a thank you letter to the Greens? I move that we endorse the acceptance of deed for the Green property on Ware Road for conservation and passive recreation purposes.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Who's going to be the designee for notary?
I can sit back.
Okay,
And with Dan brought his stuff tonight.
all right.
I did, if you wanted me to do that tonight.
Can we do it at the end?
I'm gonna have to go out to the car again.
Well, we can do it at the end.
Why don't we do it at the end?
Yeah, we have an election too, so if we don't
Yeah.
have here.
Yeah,
Melissa will be available tomorrow.
okay.
So,
I can go to Trinity tomorrow.
yeah. If we get out early enough, then we can ask them to provide your services.
Okay, so,
Point of order, is there a reason that the previous meeting is filming, showing over here? Shouldn't that be something that's happening right now?
Yeah,
That's
that's not
not-
BCTV.
yeah,
Okay, so we're not worried about that.
No.
this, I've seen this happen in other meetings too.
Channel
know.
191 is running another meeting.
Got it, okay.
I've already
You just have to
looking for Esther
ignore
and
it.
I've got her coming in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Doug.
Yeah, good. I also noticed, well, butt in on the agenda, you have mention of the Lord Jeff issue
Yeah,
with the affordability. I have it from a fairly reliable, well-connected source that this is not due to expire until next year. And it turns out Congress has kept that program funded. So there's a good chance that the property owners will choose to renew this.
so I spoke with Aaron Saunders, and who is speaking with Jake as well as the governor about this, so that we can get a collective effort on, you know, what our options are. As I have a different date. It's April of, was it 28? 2028. So,
Oh,
I mean,
well,
I
if it's
got
whatever-
a copy of the letter.
Yeah.
In addition to the one.
Yeah,
that-
whatever day is in the letter, then that's.
Yeah.
Go by that,
But
yeah.
it's important that the community know that right now, that the residents of Lord Jeff received a letter that says, this letter, including the information attached hereto as Exhibit A, constitutes notice under Section 2A of Chapter 40T that the affordability restrictions required by the Rural Housing Loan Program applicable to the development are scheduled to terminate on April 16th, 2028. And
Okay.
that has not been made public, and so I just wanted Belchertown to be aware of that. And
Can we
I think,
table this until we hit that point on the agenda? Because I'm gonna have questions too, but we have another appointment coming up.
yeah.
Because I do have questions.
Yeah, I have questions too, so I agree. But thank you for bringing it up.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
and
that's
we'll
that's
get
about
back to
all I
that.
know on it, so.
Yeah. Okay, Energy and the Energy and Sustainability Committee. Hi.
Good evening. So I'm Chris Van Back, got John Becerra from the Energy and Sustainability Committee. We've been evaluating proposals for a rooftop solar project for municipal buildings in town. And we got one of these last year, and we've been working with Steve and with Linda and Eric LeBeau on sort of evaluating and figuring out what the best way to go about this is. And we just wanted to bring you all up to speed on where we are with that project.
Thank you.
So what we're looking at is which buildings would be appropriate and sort of when roofs need to be replaced, so that we're sort of staggering them so that as a building becomes ready, we have a solar project ready to go on if we decide we want to do that. And I think it's important to note that these aren't what's called a behind the meter project where it's generating power to be used on that site. These would be in front of the meter. We're basically leasing the roof space to a developer who would then sell the power to the grid, and they would get credits from the Massachusetts Smart 3.0 as a new program. So it wouldn't affect any sort of power purchase agreement or anything going on the building. It would just be leasing the space, for payment to the town for that roof space. So what we're doing is evaluating, is this feasible, and which developer is going to give us the best offer, because we are tying up the roof space for 20 plus years. I think we do need to do an RFP. We reached out to a couple of towns in Massachusetts that have gone through a similar program, and the town of Canton very graciously supplied one of their RFPs and some contacts if we have any issues. So we're modifying, theirs was a ground mount system on a landfill. So ours will be rooftops. So we modified it to fit that change. But I think it's with legal now, council's reviewing the RFP.
That is correct, yeah.
So that's kind of where we are in the process, and just so we know what we're talking about, the first phase would be Chestnut Hill, the fire department building, the senior center, and a new police station canopy, parking canopy.
Oh, okay.
Including the structure on that. Second phase, if possible, would be Tagil and Javish Brook. And then the third phase would be Belchertown High and Swift River. And just kind of ballpark, we're talking about a total of a little over 100,000 a year for payments to the town for this roof space.
For all three.
For all three phases. Yeah, Jen?
I see Tagil's on here, and
Yes.
Tagil needs a new roof, so would they also include that as part? No. We would have to fix the roof before they could put solar on top of it.
We would do the town would replace the roof if there's funds for it and the roof is replaced.
Okay.
Then when it's ready, we would schedule the solar to be installed.
Because I know when I put solar on my own house, it was available as part of the loan because
To do the
But this
roof
is
at the
not.
same.
There was
Yeah.
some talk of an option of that, but they would lower the lease amount for a number of years to cover their cost and replace.
But still an
Oh, is that a bad idea?
I know, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah, that's.
because it's not really that.
Well, I think the preliminary discussions were that the cost for the roof would outweigh any potential electrical lease options.
Got it.
That doesn't preclude us from moving.
So we still have to pay money
Yes.
above and beyond what they
So
cover.
we are currently trying to get a grant for the roof. It won't cover the entire amount. If we get that grant, maybe it's something we can look at,
Yeah,
working on a deal.
but this
The other
would be
thing
a
is this
lease.
board has yet- This board has yet to decide officially what they are doing with the building.
Right.
That would be a concern of mine too, because if you put a solar on there and trying to sell the building with a
Yeah,
lease
that'd
of
be a
solar, it's
problem.
not gonna be good.
For
Cause I have
sure.
solar in my house, and I think this solar project is great, but maybe Tagil should become phase 3. Maybe move the high school up to phase.
Well, yeah, we don't know what we're doing with it yet, but my question is, are we leasing or buying? And if the building it's on, if the roof starts to go south, what are the provisions?
Right.
If there are any.
So the town would be leasing the roof space to the developer who owns and operates the system. So there's no responsibility to the town to purchase equipment or maintain any of the equipment.
Okay,
And the idea here is they've evaluated all the ones in phase one are ready to go now. The roofs have been replaced recently enough that there's not a concern. For the initial term, the initial proposal that we got was a 20-year term with 4 to 5 year extensions. So they were comfortable, given the age of those roofs, and talking with Eric and Linda, that those would be, good for that term. I don't know for sure, but I believe that the roofs are flat, so they don't need to be penetrated with screws to hold the panels, the racking in. So they're just sort of held on typically with cinder blocks on top of the racking, so they're not punching holes in the roof. So
but if the roof did need repairs,
yeah,
is that up to, it sounds like it's up to
it would be up to
Belchertown.
the town.
Okay.
I believe, yeah.
Would they take it off, or would they charge us for taking it off so we can?
I don't know. That's something we'd want to get an answer to.
Well, I mean, this is a good preliminary report.
Yeah.
And any other?
Yeah, I actually have a few questions. So phase one for 34,000, that's not per each building, that's for
That's
the
total.
total.
And that's just
Okay.
based on the main developer that
Okay, yeah.
came to us. We've
Right.
just got another one that was more. We gotta find out why it's more for what they're
Okay.
proposing.
Yeah.
So we're looking at different developers and we're finding out that there's different ways out there, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Are they jacking up the output to look better, or, or
Right.
another one saying less, so they have to pay less?
Right. Now, your committee is not at all looking at ground mount, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then the last question I had is, when you're talking to Canton, are you getting references from them on how their relationships are going with their
A client.
lessee or whatever, leasees or whatever you call them?
We haven't, but we can do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I'm just curious to know, like, it seems like it would be a simple relationship where, if they didn't pay, the equipment would just come down off the building, but I'd be curious to know, like, how it's going for Canton.
And then just one more, so the reason that we're only looking at rooftop is because Smart 3.0 incentivizes rooftop, like pre-built spaces, and disincentivizes green space.
Yes.
So that's why it's
I'm
not
for
that.
that, yes.
Yeah.
And the bottom part, you're choosing a developer, that's kind of where we're at now, and there's some discussion back and forth on, do we really need an RFP? Or do we just talk to some of these developers? There's really 3 or 4 developers in Massachusetts that do this and
Yeah.
do it well. And new information, we should talk to Steve about it. The other thing is the timing. July 4th is the end of the federal tax credit. So if there's nothing signed and kind of ready to go by July 4th, which is a long shot right now to try and get an RFP. We're not going to hit that. So we're not going to get the federal tax credit, which means we might get less on the lease. We don't know that yet. We got to talk to some of these people. But one of the developers that we're talking with today via email, and Chris and I are going to meet with them tomorrow. They have what they call a safe harbor or a power option.
Yeah.
Where they have panels ready to put on site, they can just earmark them and maybe get around that, but that's not going the RFP route. We just gave us some advice on things to ask tomorrow, so we're gonna go through that. So right now, we're kind of like going both routes, we'll probably go the RFP route, but if we do, we're not gonna hit that July 4th end of federal tax incentives. I don't know what that's gonna do with the leasing price that they're gonna offer, so. That's kind of where we're at.
Steve, do you have any concerns?
Yeah, I was just going to
Sorry.
say, no, go ahead.
Well, we have to get around this procurement issue first. There may be an opportunity to work with an existing state contracted vendor. If we can do that, then we can move forward a little bit quicker. I think you brought up a good question. If we wouldn't want to put panels on a roof that needs repair, That's why we focused on the roofs that we did first.
Mhm.
But if there is a problem, will they remove them at a nominal fee, or are they gonna charge us anything? Because that could become a problem. It could
Right.
Drive up the cost of any capital improvement, so we need to be careful with that. We'll have to look very carefully at the contract and everything.
Right.
But really, I think it's a good idea. I think we have roof space that's underutilized, and we should be looking at these leases. We need to talk to the school department to make sure. I know that
Yeah.
the sustainability committee has reached out there at Lebeau, but we just need to make sure that the full committee is on board as well.
Mhm.
So we'll get through this process, and hopefully we'll see some panels soon. We had a set of panels on the fire station that actually lived their 20-year lifespan. When the roof on the fire station was
right.
on, we took them off. They were outdated. It didn't make sense to put it back on. So,
So it's not, there's none in there right now.
right.
That was my understanding.
That's a good story, yeah.
What's the thought process behind putting Jadish Brook in phase 2? Is it with the assumption that that entire building is not in such disrepair that it would get a roof before this went on?
I thought the roof was a major problem with
The
Jake.
roof needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
And again, the economy of scale, because I'm sure there's people that are listening to this right now, or homeowners who say, well, they'll put new shingles on my roof if I put solar on. Well, that cost is much, much less than what a membrane roof on a school building
That's right.
would cost. So the math just doesn't work for these vendors to come in and replace a roof without some sort of a payment back to them. So it's something that's on the table for us for sure, but we're just not there yet. That's why.
Can I just clarify my question? Was it Eric LeBeau that said that JBMS could fall into phase 2 because the building could?
No, I think initially when I talked to John and Chris, I told them to hold back on that one for now. That was my decision, because we need to find funding for the roof.
And I think another, just to add to that, these projects, if we get an RFP or sort of sign this summer, it's going to be a year before the panels are installed, maybe longer. So I think the idea here is to get phase 1 rolling, have a, relationship with the developer established, and then, in 2 or 3 years, when these next phase of buildings are ready, hopefully, then we can be ready to have solar to go on right away.
Hopefully.
Staggered.
Any other questions, concerns?
All of my questions, I think, were probably answered by legal. I'm thinking about liability, just, what are the fine prints if there is damage to the roof caused by the panels, if the panels, need to be repaired, is it our liability? And then if for some reason this company were to fail, what's our responsibility in having them removed? But I'm sure legal's, all that.
But you're gonna be going to, you don't know if you're gonna go to several different vendors. That's the next. Are you recommending?
Well, some of that stuff we would address in the RFP. Most of it we would address before we sign a contract.
Okay,
So we want to make sure the contract protected us.
yes, I mean, those are
So
excellent.
these developers have done many of these, so, I think they know what they're on the hook for.
Yeah,
Thank you for doing the research, though. It's
Yes,
really-
thank you.
Yeah, that's
so
what we're
much.
kind of, that's why we figured it was time to come in front of you. We're
Yeah.
also trying to meet this deadline, which is, again, it's gonna be a long shot. And maybe we found a workaround, but things are moving kind of quickly, so we need to bring everybody up to speed.
Okay, so, if you do make the July 4th deadline, you'll be coming before us again?
Hopefully before then.
Yeah,
I think you're on June meeting for just a general update, correct? I just don't want to come in on that.
No, I'm not gonna be here June 1st, so, I think we're pushing that off.
Yes, but we will get to that.
And that's
Okay.
another reason why I was going, because I'm gonna be on your next 2 select board meetings, I'm not gonna be available.
so you around June 15th?
But somebody from the committee could present, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be you,
Yeah.
John, even though you.
Steve, as the procurement officer, you can choose the vendor that they go with, correct?
Select board is likely the awarding authority, so an RFP, I think you would have to make the decision, but I can look into that.
Well, when you make the recommendation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, so between us, we come up with a recommendation, we
Yes,
present it to you.
Okay.
And then, and it's probably gonna be between two, probably between 2 developers.
Well, thank you. Much appreciated. Okay, next we have Gail Gramarossa.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for having me back. I know we're pressed for time, so I just wanted to give you a quick updates. Also, just make note that Nick Southwick Hall is here online with us from Honest Beginnings. So you hopefully had a chance to read what was in your packet. So I was here last month presenting to you the Honest Beginnings application for some repair on their basement. You had some questions and some comments, and I just wanted to bring you up to speed as to what happened between then and now. Based on some of your comments and questions, we reached out to Honest Beginnings. You should have seen and received a third bid. I know there were questions about the family tree and home bid. So from the committee's perspective, that bid is discarded. And the one that was brought in as a third bid from JL, I want to make sure I've got their name right, but you should have it. That is the new third bid. So we appreciate you bringing that JL Construction to our attention. Also, you should see the email thread from the building inspector that they were able to look at, which was admittedly, you know, a rough floor plan, but they were okay with that. Honest Beginnings is in contact with them and communication. You got a statement from, signed by Nick, from Honest Beginnings and their leaders. I had a long conversation with one of their administrative people as well, just to be sure they were really clear about your concern about conflict of interest, reminding them that these dollars are not tax dollars per se, but they're also subject to all kinds of guidelines that other kinds of dollars are not. So all of the additional scrutiny is warranted based on that. Just to say that the committee still strongly supports the application. We're hoping that you might, if you feel comfortable, if you're able to, if you can take a vote this evening, and encourage you to support this. I know they're anxious to get the work done. So those were some of the key things that we were able to at least have conversations about, get some additional information in our attempts to address some of the comments and the questions that you had back in April.
Well done. Thank you. Any discussion?
Thank you for getting all that stuff. I appreciate all those questions coming back and appreciate the time you invested into all this. I think it's a great project. I did have concerns publicly just with the conflict of interest.
Yep.
With the jail construction bid, I'm okay to be awarded. I would be okay with the project to be awarded to jail construction.
Okay.
Are you making a motion?
I'm just stating.
Oh, okay.
That's a difference of like $3,000 though.
Well, that's the other thing too, and I've talked with the folks at Honest Beginnings. What the original application was for the $8,900. That is what the committee voted in support of and then brought to you. So there is a range amongst the three bids that are now still in contention. Our committee's expectation would be that what we've recommended and what they applied for was the $8,900. So if there is anything in excess of that, if they go with a bidder that's in excess of that, then those costs will have to be taken care of, unless they want to reapply, but that's going to delay the process.
Can they do that?
Oh, okay.
They could, I mean,
Okay.
certainly a reapplication or an updated application with a larger amount. The committee is meeting on June 1st, so we could take that up at a June 1st meeting if they, want to go with a bidder that is higher than that $8,900. But that was what the original application was.
There was also a bid from Sean Bannon for $8,099.
Right.
That I thought that would probably be the way that they would go.
Yep, if I were making that recommendation, that's what I would encourage them to look at.
But it sounds
Exactly.
like
Right.
unless Honest Beginnings reapplies for a new amount,
Right.
they would be on the hook for that $3,000 delta.
Anything above the $8,900, yep, they would need to look to other resources for that.
I would be okay with either one. They're not conflict of interest, so I'm okay approving either amount.
And again, I don't know if anybody has questions for Nick, who's definitely more expert than I am about the, the entirety of the physical property.
Any questions for Nick? Hi, Nick.
Hello. I think we'd be happy to work with JL locally from now, a good trusted company. And we might just have to, choose some custom products, or maybe some of the guys can volunteer from the house, and we'll just have to make it work if that's okay with everybody else.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Nick.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
I move that we approve the request of the opioid settlement committee granting $8,100,
It's actually 89.
$8,900,
was the
sorry,
application, Yep.
to Honest Beginnings for a lower level renovation and furnishings of their sober living home on Federal Street.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and also I do thank you for a good lesson for the committee that we really need to take a close look at making sure there's no conflicts of interest in various ways for any future applications as well. So great.
I'm
Thank
glad
you very
you
much.
did your due diligence.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank
Gail.
you so much. Have a great night. I'm out.
All right, thanks,
Bye.
Nick. Okay, moving right along. I wanted to put town meeting review first, just because it's so recent, and just open it up for discussion. What works, what didn't, areas for improvement, whatever anyone thinks.
I think my biggest takeaway is that we need to put together the government study committee, like, as a high priority for this year.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I mean,
Why?
so we have how many voters in this town? And
Right.
there were just or under 200 people
Yeah.
making all of the decisions for the town. And I know that there was discussion on the forums about moving town meeting and maybe we get more attendance, but I don't think that last year's meeting is a true indicator given the override. I know that, Monday night at 7 p.m. is not great, but Saturday mornings, a lot of families in town have sports and wouldn't be able to attend either. So I have grave concerns about the direction. I feel like we need to get that government study going so that we can take a hard look at like what we're doing here, as we move into the future of our community. So
Would the government study include, though?
it includes all of it, yeah.
Well, would it include, when would you like to meet?
Sorry. So a government study looks at our form of government and whether or not it's appropriate or whether or not we should change it. And it's a 2 to 3 year process. It was recommended in the DLS in 2021.
Oh, so you're talking about whether it's representational
Yes.
or if we stick with town meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I think that we need to make that a priority this year. That was my biggest takeaway from town meeting.
So I do agree
Smart.
with you that, last year was an outlier, not representative of what it would look like if we moved town meetings to Saturdays. But I am pretty staunch traditionalist. This is one of the things that makes New England what it is. And I mean, I'm okay with doing a study, but I just don't know that I would support moving away from annual town meeting. I'd rather us focus on how do we drum up participation.
but I think, to Jen's point, if last year was an outlier and we're getting between, what,
On average, like 200 people.
200 people, then I don't know, like, what we could do to change that.
Well, I don't know what we have done to change. I mean, we've done a few things, right? We've brought childcare in, transportation. I don't know what we can do.
Yeah, I mean,
That
I
would
hear
be
your
something we'd have to
point.
think about. but-
Yeah,
I just think we should start the committee now. If it's 2 to 3 years, let's start it now and know what we're looking at. There's no harm to look at it. I'm not saying we have to do this,
Yeah,
but
we
we
may
should
not,
get the
we may
information in
decide
front
to
of us.
stay with what we have,
Yeah.
but I mean,
no, I think collecting data and listening to the data makes sense.
Was the DLS recommendation to study it or to move to a different form of government?
I think it was to study it.
To study it. I think it's a process. It's like a legislative process to change, right? Like this formation of a committee is the first step in that process. And I feel like every year since the DLS came out, we talk about it and then we all say, oh, it's a really long process. And, and then it's sort of like all of a sudden another year goes by and then we haven't actually done it. So
I think it makes sense.
That's all.
Yeah.
Is there a cost to a government study beyond our time?
That part I'm not really clear on, but I think, putting together a committee to start the process wouldn't really hurt, I think.
Would it be an outside consultant that would work on that, or?
I don't know, we'd have to really take a look at it again, I think. But
So last year I reached out to the town of Ludlow, who had completed a government study committee. It was, for them, it was titled the Charter Review.
Okay.
They put me in touch with the people at, I believe it was either the Collins Center or the DLS that they worked with. And
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring.
I had somebody lined up to come into the select board. The first step is not to form a committee.
Oh, okay.
The first step is really to get an expert in that can kind of glean from the board what it is exactly that you want to look at.
That makes sense.
And then from there, they'll guide you through the process of forming a committee, the types of people that you want on the committee.
Okay.
You want people that are somewhat government-minded so they understand the ins and outs of government. But because government and Mass General law are so intricate, you really need support. It's not something you do alone.
No.
So there is probably going to be a fee associated with it.
And probably legal as
A
well.
lot of legal time.
Yeah.
So we do have a very high-functioning capital improvement planning group right now, and feasibility studies are something that can be included in that. So I do think it's something that we could, if we started soon, by next budget season, we could have a proposal ready to go to town meeting for the funding.
That's a great idea.
And then from there, we, just keep moving through the process. So in 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about goals and objectives. We can certainly push that back towards the top and prioritize it. So.
Okay.
And the gentleman I talked to was more than willing to come in. His
Great.
name was Anthony Wilson. He said he would be happy to attend the meeting and discuss the ins and outs with you.
Okay. Sounds good.
So,
Okay.
perfect.
Any other thoughts on town meeting?
The only other comment I would have, if we could maybe include like the Scouts or the Girl Scouts or anybody like that could present the colors, like just to get the youth involved into town meeting. It's just the veterans aren't seeing that Americanism of the American flag presented at the town meeting. So it was just a recommendation from the veterans group, like how can we get that? If it's just even
Well, I
veterans.
love that idea because
in-
we want to bring young people into
Yeah,
the
I mean,
process.
it might add 5 more minutes to town meeting, but I think it's what we represent as a town and shows that stuff.
Well, I want to add that I thought that the information was plentiful and well organized, and there were lots of different ways to get the information, and so I want to thank you, Steve, and your team for doing such a good job of putting that together.
And the communications committee, they did an excellent job.
Really well done.
Yeah, I wanted to give them a shout out. Ed Como and the communications committee, they were really relentless on trying to get these enhanced town meeting packets out. This was our first try at it. And we had, excuse me, we had a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
We were able to get the information out. Some of it could certainly be better. It's a step in the right direction, and we know next year's is going to be better, and the year after that, we hope it's going to be even better than next year.
But
so I'm
for
looking
the
forward
first
to
year,
watching it evolve.
I just think it was a home run.
And I was paying attention to the votes, and I thought that the vote counts had a wider
Margin.
of differences of opinions, and I think part of that could have been attributable to people having more information and being able to make a more informed decision and maybe voting how they felt, rather than just going with the crowd at the time.
Yeah.
So I think it did work in that regard. But I also heard some people say that the town meeting was too rushed.
Oh, yeah.
And I think partly that happened because people had the information ahead of
Right.
time. They didn't have to ask a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want people to, blame the select board or the finance committee or my office for trying to rush town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I think getting the
What
information out.
specifically was rushed? Was it because that one situation where we wanted to combine articles? Do you think that
Possibly.
was?
I think that was part of it.
Possibly.
But I
didn't
also
feel like
think it was unusual that we got out at a reasonable time.
I think the right term is it was a very efficient town meeting.
Yes.
And I think it was efficient because people had the information ahead of time.
Yeah.
Years past, people complained that they didn't have the information ahead of time. Now they have it, so the meetings go more efficiently, and if we get a few complaints, well, at least we're still getting out of there at a reasonable time.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
And
I mean,
people are informed.
maybe if our moderator were going to try to combine articles again, to just let us know ahead of time. So, because I think for me, I was really clear right from the start that I wanted those to be separate, read separately. So, but I don't know. I didn't feel much else was rushed in that meeting, but efficient is definitely the word.
The one thing I would add is that I heard that tradition was being ignored. And I think that has to do with the awards that used to be given out.
Oh.
And so I do think that one of the goals we should consider for the upcoming year is to make an awards evening, and whatever that is, we'll, a committee on that as well. But I think that sense of recognizing, who's been doing some amazing work has been lost. But at the same time, we gained it. I can remember taking over an hour. And, people wanted to get to the subject matter because, they have kids or they want to, they have a life. So is there a way that we can do both, maybe separate them? I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we have been soliciting nominations for the various awards, and that's going to be an agenda item shortly.
Okay.
I don't expect we're going to have a big fancy ceremony this year, but again, some of these things take time. We're bringing it back.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that can only grow in time.
I have a question on that. Is it a conflict of interest for any one of us to submit a nomination for someone?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
Even though aren't we the?
Well, I suppose you are the deciding authority.
Yeah, I don't think we can.
But I there's no law
Unless
saying
you
you can't.
recuse yourself, maybe?
Yeah, I'd rather. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't know, if it feels like,
Yeah, it's
just
a
wanna-
little questionable, but there's no law saying you can't do
I
that.
just want to comment on the awards thing. I've been kind of working on that quietly. I haven't got all the details out, but I've been working with the HR director on kind of putting something together. So as I get more details, I'll put it out. I'm just working on dates and times, so.
Nice.
And
Dates and times for what? An actual ceremony?
yeah, for employees,
Oh, neat.
so I'm trying to work that out.
well, employees, but also town
All- yes, all year
volunteers.
and two, yep.
I mean,
all
the
that.
volunteers, I said this before, but we need to really
It's on my board member report. so I
recognize.
just started that process.
Well,
recognize
but
that
before we
piece.
work on dates and times, should we not first decide if it should be part of the annual town meeting or separate?
Yeah, I mean, let's listen to what John has so far, and then, not now. Yeah, I mean, I think there should be discussion about it among all of us. And, that's where the best decisions are made, when we're all involved.
May I make a few more comments about the past annual town meeting?
I'm sorry?
May I make a few more comments about the
Yeah.
past annual town meeting?
Please.
So just a few other things that came to mind. The text messaging system, would that be an appropriate use to text message people and remind them it's annual town meeting?
No, I think we could make that work.
I don't want to abuse it by any means, but it might be helpful because Monday nights are hard.
Yeah,
Also, I'm glad that we offered childcare and transportation again, but I actually, the library said they did not realize that there was childcare. So I think we do need to reach out to where our people are going and just have maybe a sign or something that they can point to and make sure that they're aware too. They had no idea.
And also have it on the town website, like
Yeah.
a boop,
Right, because it just kind of appeared on the recreation department site, so
Yeah.
I signed my kids up. But I don't know if other people saw it unless they were looking for it.
Yeah, I think maybe perhaps there was an assumption that we did it last year, so to
Yeah,
go
so
back.
it's forever.
But we need to tell every year, you're right.
Right, because it's quite the commitment.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. Normally, this is when I would insert, we should have a special town meeting in January to get through all the articles, but it was so fast that if we can keep moving things in an expedited manner, maybe we don't, but,
Well, I thought about that too,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And last year, we had an October town meeting, and we addressed 11 articles.
well, okay, good point,
So-
Steve.
And we
Yeah.
need one in the fall for grant deadlines.
Then, yeah, then maybe we should do
Potentially.
that.
Yeah. And that could also be the reason why it went faster.
Maybe,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Oh my
So
gosh, can you
I
imagine?
think we're gonna
We have
play that by
53.
year,
Okay,
Yeah.
if we have stuff that needs to be addressed, we'll schedule a town meeting, rather than hold it
Yeah.
off till May.
that's
I
not a bad
agree.
idea.
Could
And-
we maybe, go ahead, Whitney.
I was just saying, and I do not want to, rain on the parade. I think it was very well executed. I'm really excited. We gave such detailed articles, but I think because we had two sets, there were a few errors. For next time, how are we going to try to tighten that up? Will it have one version handy instead of two?
Yeah, we're reviewing a lot of the in-house procedures. A few things, the numbering was, there was, I'm not sure what happened with that. I think it was because we had multiple different versions out at any one time. So I think you're right, it got lost somewhere in the review process. The CPC articles, I think, are often written how the applications come in. And if the application has the error in it, it should be corrected before it even makes it to the warrant. We don't give those as much of a review because they come through the CPC.
Right.
So we're gonna tighten all of that up to make sure that we don't have problems in the future. Last year, we had an issue with the CPC article, with names of churches being.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
So, we do wanna watch that a little bit closer, just because somebody could question, how the money's being spent,
Or we could change the name of a church inadvertently.
or a school, yeah.
Or a road.
Yeah, that would have been a heck of a surprise for the superintendent if
No
the,
kidding.
Javish Brook, Chestnut Hill Community School became a middle school. Yeah,
Yeah.
he would have probably not been happy with me.
No.
So,
But all in all, well done. All in all, well done.
I was just gonna ask, for when we do bring this up again, could we maybe all try to come with like 5 ideas of ways that we could drum up participation?
Yeah.
So that we can keep this really important tradition going?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of the robocall.
Yeah.
I think if it's. a
There was
limited
also
use,
talk
it's-
about,
That's what I was thinking, not text, but robocalls.
Well, yeah, right now, I don't know what they call it, reverse 911, or they call it.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to selfishly use, the students, but I also, like the scouts, your point about the scouts, I also talked to them about there's a civics badge. And so next year, they're like, oh, we'll bring them for their civics badge. Can we reach out to the schools and see if they can give extra credit? And I
extra
know,
credit,
even though they can't vote, their parents can.
but the 18-year-olds
And then
can.
they're thinking about it, and then it's at home on the refrigerator, and it's all good marketing.
So a couple of years ago, I had floated the idea that we could have an internship or a study as part of a course at the high school.
Yeah.
And that part of it would be to come and observe and ask questions and to get them involved in civic engagement. And there was some interest, but I think there was so much going on with the schools, it just kind of got lost. But I do think that there is an opportunity for the schools and the students to, get more involved in what happens in this room. We did a game with the kids called Wait, Wait, Just Tell Me. And in it, we asked questions. This was for, I forget the name of the club, but they're interested in politics. And they, we said, who is the town manager? What happens at town meeting? And a lot of other basic questions. And, some of them they knew, some of them they didn't, but that gave us a chance to talk about what it was that we were doing that was so important and why they needed to get involved. So that's something to consider following up on. Okay. Anything more on that? Okay, so Lord Jeff, letter to renters. I know, Nicole, you were going to.
Yeah, did we lose Doug, though?
Yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Okay. What was the question?
Well, so a couple of things that I heard. Where, did I hear somebody say that the Mount Holyoke management likely will not, will likely keep these as affordable properties? Did I hear somebody say that?
I think there's a good speculation and at this point is yes, they would probably like to renew those. My understanding is, and some of this information came from the USDA Rural Development, that the contract that's in place, there's a sort of a soft expiration in 27. That's what Doug is referring to. The final expiration is in 28, April of 28. We would expect that our legislators are going to refund this program, and that would give some incentive for the owners of Lord Jeff to reapply. So these are things that we're trying to watch closely. This is really out of our hands. We can certainly talk to our legislators about refunding this program to make sure that it's still there, and hope that the owners renew. I believe they will, as long as there's a funding source, because it's a business model that they've grown to accustomed to. And changing that is not going to be an easy thing to do. So I feel bad for the residents that live there that receive a letter that essentially tells them that.
Frightening.
Very frightening letter. And I want people to understand that, certainly the town planner, the town manager, and the select board are watching this closely, that we are going to continue to watch it. And, we'll continue to report back. But I do have a meeting tomorrow with Aaron Saunders. I'm going to talk to him about this. I had one set up with him this morning, but I got...
Yeah, he told me he was meeting with you
Okay.
tomorrow, and he had not seen the letter, wasn't aware
Yeah,
of
he
what
has
was
it.
going on.
Yeah.
But he has since, like later on this afternoon, did get a copy of it and is, like I said, going to be talking with Jake and the governor.
So right now, it's really just keeping the pressure on our legislators to make sure that the message is spread around that, we want to see this continue, because if this were to be taken off the rolls of affordable housing, it would have a very
Significant effect
on
the
numbers.
percentage of affordable housing we have in Belchertown.
But I think that would be a statewide problem as well, not just ours.
So, although they may or may not oblige us, I would very much like for you and Doug to request a meeting of Mount Holyoke Management, just to have a conversation and try to get an idea of where their head is at. Because I hear what you're saying, that if the state refunds the program, it's probably easier, path of least resistance would be to continue.
This is a federal program,
It's federal, yeah.
Okay.
not state.
Okay,
It's not
so
state.
Steve, did you say the state would refund
No,
it?
the federal would, but we need to work with
Okay.
all of our
So-
legislators.
Okay, so let's just say whatever.
Yeah, even at the state level, we need to work at our legislators.
Okay,
That's really the road.
hang on, let me finish
Okay.
my thought. So path of least resistance, you're saying, is to keep business as usual. Well, in my mind, path of least resistance may be to just be done with it and just go to market rate housing. So I'm not really sure which one is path of least resistance. And so I'd like for us to proactively get in front of them just to see if they'd be willing to share anything. And they may say no to a meeting, but I think we need to try.
Okay. Yeah, we can reach out to them. You know, we will be reaching out to Markey's office, but our state legislators also have a pathway to our federal legislators and can certainly advocate for us. So we need to get everybody involved in this to make sure.
And if you think about it,
program
you know, it's
keeps solvent.
23 months. That's like the eviction would happen. In less than a year, we'd be talking about the first phase. So we don't have a lot of time. But I trust that our legislators will move quickly. They're aware of the timeline as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Do we know of how many other properties across the state this is impacting?
I do not.
This is the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's a federal agency and a federal program. And when the project was initially financed, the developers got a break in their interest rate and interest subsidies for the tenants to subsidize the rate down to affordability. And that program ran out when the mortgage was repaid. And the developers made a new agreement to continue the property in that program for a limited period of time, which is running out once again. That agreement can be re-extended in the future. And there is federal funding to continue that program. It's going to be up to the owners of the property to decide whether they want to pursue that agreement or not.
So this is not the first time that they've re-upped?
It would be the second
time. Okay, that's promising.
I used to work for rural development.
Okay.
So I have a pretty good idea what's going on.
Well, thank you. Anything else on
The only
that?
other comment I wanted to make is just that this letter is so unhelpful to a resident. It's like you said, I think you said it was scary.
Yeah.
It's very scary, it's antiquated, and I'm curious, what are they doing? Are they having a town meeting? Are they doing anything to bring the residents together? So if I had kids in the schools and I got this letter, I'd be terrified. What am I gonna do?
Exactly. Or if I were 84 years old.
Yeah.
Then, you know, thought this is where I was gonna live.
They're gonna have to leave Belchertown is what I would think, and that would scare me. So I'm just curious. I know it says you can reach out to Amy. I don't know Amy. I'm curious if she has the information she needs to.
I think she's the property, she's like the one that's in the office there.
Okay, well, that's a lot of work for Amy.
Well, all I know is that we needed to get this out in front of the community so that they're aware. And, you know, our leadership knows about it now. And, you know, working with the select board and with Doug and with Steve, we just have to, like, this is one of those, like the healthcare updates, we're going to need to really stay on.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Okay. Can we move on to the town manager's performance review process?
Sure.
Okay. So did everyone have a chance to look at the materials and also have any feedback on it that you want to share?
Admittedly, I have not, and so I'm trying to get into my computer right now.
So we do have the formal presentation of it scheduled for June 1st.
Yeah. So this is
Board
this is
knows.
a preliminary,
Right.
you know, to familiarize you with what we've used in the past. Doesn't mean that this is what we use, but
When you say we're having a formal presentation on the first one, what does that mean?
I guess that's the formal review night. If you're ready, if the board is ready, we have it tentatively scheduled for June 1st,
Okay,
select board meeting.
so so I guess that's why I had asked if we could talk about this tonight, because how are we doing this? We have this process that was completed previously, right?
I thought it was June 15th, not June 1st. We talked about June 15th to give everyone more time.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
I think the intent was to have it done by the end of the fiscal year, so June 15th is.
Yeah. But for a couple people, this is brand new.
And then June 2nd is goals and objectives, right?
Yeah, we have a regular meeting June 1st and June 15th, and then June 2nd is goals and objectives, yes.
Jen, did you have?
Well, I just wanted to make sure everyone had the process if they had any questions, like John.
Can you help me to understand what I'm supposed to be looking at here? Because I see multiple versions and then I see one that's blank. I'm not really sure what I'm looking at.
Section 2, Section 3, so I was 4, I was just,
Right, like, are we gonna get a copy of the current goals and objectives to compare against what the
like, does it have to be,
categories are?
that's what I was
Yeah, we
concerned
definitely
about. I
need
was just
updated goals and
confused
objectives.
about it
Yeah.
all, so I didn't know.
I know, that's why we're having this meeting.
So I don't know, like, I'm new to it, so I'm just confused on what the sections were, like, how am I rating him versus goals and objectives, and I looked at the goals and objectives and looked at this, I was like, I don't understand how they fit, if that makes sense.
Well, so, first of all, how would you like, or do you want me to?
I don't know,
say something?
yeah, I don't know,
Okay.
so I'm
So,
confused, sorry, I'm
we-
just trying to understand it all.
We have 6 goals, and underneath each goal, there were
Mhm.
action items. So we could do goal 1, 2. We don't have to go through each action item. We can look at it overall. I'm just making a suggestion, or we could go through each one.
And are we doing this together as a group and talking about it? Or are we putting our thoughts together separately and compiling? That's the way it happened, I believe, last year. It was Ed took all of.
He did it 2 years in a row.
Right, so
Yeah.
my recollection is that we gave all of our commentary to him and he collated it and presented it to you
Yeah.
at
So
some point, and I don't.
What we sent to you is the standard appraisal form that the board voted to utilize.
Yeah.
You should have received a copy of it, a blank copy as well as a completed one that Ed put together last year. I believe that Ed reached out to the select board members individually.
Yes.
He did.
He did.
Back individually, he pulled everything together into the one
Yeah.
document, presented it. So it wasn't directly linked to the goals and objectives.
Right.
So that would take some time to try to figure out how to revise the form to link it to the 6 categories of the goals and objectives. So they're almost, well, right now, they're 2 separate conversations. I mean, yes, they're linked in the sense that I'm being judged based on success of the goals and objectives, but the documents don't align the way
But they
that I
could.
think you would.
I mean, you could have goal 1, and then
Yeah.
here are some action items. We don't have to go through all, like I just said. this.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at it. So the first
Yeah.
section is goals and objectives, right?
Yeah.
So like we had given goals and objectives and whether or not, based on these criteria, if it happened. And then there's this section 2, knowledge, skills, and professional development, which has, I mean, it's pretty standard. It's pretty simple. And then there's the commentary situation. So to Steve's point, I don't know that we need to necessarily list out all the 6 goals. I guess the first question is, do we like this format? Number 1, do we want to change it? Or, like, I guess it's up to, the 5 of us sitting here this year to decide, right? This is what would happen the last couple of years. Previous to that, there wasn't one. So,
No, this is right.
so this is all brand new.
I do like the way that this is set up, and to clarify, if we do make section 1 goals and objectives, we've got to add one more column for the 6th.
No, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
Yeah,
people.
but-
1,
So,
2, 3. How many goals and objectives do
No,
we
no, no.
have?
6.
It's
But
John,
this is-
Nicole, Lisa,
Yeah,
Jen,
this
and
is
then,
our names.
Oh, we're not breaking it down by, Okay.
Wait, but that's
No,
not.
that's not what
what's written
the
here. No.
the report says
It says
from the
goals,
previous one.
objectives, extra goals, personal.
Yeah, because look at this, it is broken down by each goal and objective on here.
Okay, great.
I mean, I think that makes sense.
Okay, so
You
then we
know?
do have to add a column to this if we decide to go that route. Because we have 6 goals
Sure.
and objectives currently, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we would add another column to this. But I do think we should each fill this out.
Separately.
Yeah,
Separate, they combine the score,
didn't
like, take an
care.
average.
Yeah, and not that I didn't trust Ed, but, and also I was new, so I didn't really have much to share, but we all need to be filling this out and coming together. Not one person saying, well, tell me how you think he's doing and I'll just
Right.
put it all together for us.
No, I
don't
agree.
like that.
We all need to do that.
When did we submit this last year? I'm just thinking about timing. I mean, I would like for us next year to do this well before election night if possible.
Great.
Because we are the board that's worked with you this year.
But the reason why we have it this late was to give Steve, we didn't have his goals out until late. And so to shortchange him by, having it come a month early doesn't really give him the time that,
Yeah, I hear you. but-
I'm open to a separate meeting for it too, because
Yeah.
it's a big topic.
Yeah.
And doing it before election
Election
night.
night.
Like,
And the next year we've got 2 seats up, so then you
So
might
the
lose
big-
a big percentage.
yeah. So the big thing is to get the goals done early so that
Yeah.
then we're giving him enough time to actually fulfill the goals.
Okay. All right, so how are we moving forward with this at the moment?
Great question.
I like status quo. Just add that 6th column for the last goal and objective and bam, let's go.
and then we're gonna send them to Lisa, and you'll composite
Yeah.
all the scores, or like average
Exactly.
scores. Is that what you're gonna? Is that
Yeah.
what we're gonna do? 5 averages.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah?
I think we should
Yeah.
probably send them to the clerk until we know what happens tonight. I'm sorry, Lisa. Right?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
Well, no, we're not doing this tonight.
yeah.
Well, I know, but I'm sorry, doesn't the term end effective immediately if you're not reelected?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll just give them to whoever, actually, it shouldn't go to Lisa. It's whoever the new chair is, regardless of what happens to
Gotcha.
Lisa.
But I'm just saying that have it go to the chair.
Gotcha.
And then everybody's input is.
Maybe we should
is
set a
there.
date of when we want to get this.
Because we
Yeah.
need it before the next meeting, right?
Sounds like we're waiting for the
The
June
15th?
15th, so,
Okay.
yeah, you have a month.
Okay.
But we should set a date so there's time for whoever to work on it and combine the data.
Actually, that's a really good idea. I mean, it can't all go to the chair like the night before.
Because it's
No.
not going to be.
Yeah,
And I would be more than happy to schedule a separate meeting for the board to work on this as a group. I don't have to be there. I'm not 100% sure. I could verify if it could be done during executive session. I think it probably could be.
That would be good if
I
it could
think
be.
it could be as long as you're offered the opportunity to be here and you choose whether or not you
I
want to be
think that would be a
here or
great
not.
idea. Then we could.
I
Me
agree.
being new, I think I would be more comfortable just.
Absolutely.
You know, you could do a Saturday morning if you wanted to.
I'm okay with that.
So if you want, we can send a doodle poll out,
Sure.
Yeah.
try to get a time together.
And you'll give us your updated goals and objectives status?
You will have those by the 1st. Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Yep.
And
I'm
then
hoping to have
you-
them out by the end of next week.
Did we
And then-
do?
Let me just finish this thought, and then add a column to this
Yep, I can
part,
do that.
and then fill in the goals and objective titles.
Do you think it'd be a good idea to have Joanne there, being the HR?
Probably, yeah.
Could we invite her too? If the board's
I'll just
okay.
toss out, I have no available Saturdays until July.
Yeah, I don't want to do a Saturday.
So
I would do
we
an
make it
evening.
an executive section for, section,
Yeah, you can-
session
Well,
for our next
if we
meeting.
can,
You can do an
Steve
evening.
needs to, don't you need to check it out to make sure that
Yeah, I
falls
can
under?
double check, but
Okay.
I can do an evening on an off night too. You don't have to do it on a Monday night, because I know Monday nights get very late,
Yeah.
Sure they do, and we get punchy.
so.
The other question I have is, did we last year do have you do a self-evaluation? No.
We should have you do
That's
a
a good idea.
self-evaluation.
Yeah.
Because there's room, this has
Good idea.
room for one.
He's gonna, and you'll remember more on some of the things that you've done that we won't, so that's to your benefit.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to do.
I think a lot of that will be flushed out during the goals and objectives discussion on the first and second. Yeah,
Okey-dokey.
So no?
absolutely.
I think it would be a good idea to do
Oh, no, I'm not
a
saying that.
self-evaluation. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. As someone
agree
who's
with
currently
this.
going through this process,
Yeah.
the self-reflection's important.
But it's more just
Absolutely.
about, it's more than tasks, right? It's
Yes.
the emotional intelligence side of it. This is how I am with, how I interact with my employees, and this is how I interact with residents, and, I think there's more to it.
Yeah,
Just to get your take, I think would be important for the board.
I like that.
Anything else on that, or
No.
can we go to right of first refusal?
Thank you for going through that.
Steve, can you talk about this?
So we have a request for a right of first refusal for the O'Brien property located at 221 Aldrich Street, Assessors map 248, lots 2 and 3. Lot 2, I'm sorry, 3 acres. This is the property that the planning board has been reviewing for a proposed subdivision, which has now been permitted.
Yeah.
So this is the final step in order for the developer to start moving forward. Both Conservation Commission and Planning Board have recommended that the Select Board not exercise their right of first refusal and allow the property to go to sale. So we are making the recommendation that the Select Board vote the same.
I make a motion we do not operate.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I make a motion we do not
Exercise.
our right of first refusal. There we go.
Second,
The tongue
And
twister.
further discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Endorse letters of support for Community One Stop for Growth application.
Yep, I can take that one too. So we have a series of letters in your to-be-signed file. One's for the grant. These are all one-stop grants. Cadgel Roof Construction, $2,563,000.
That's amazing.
Water and sewer infrastructure for 6 and 8 Berkshire Avenue, $239,777, with the DPW providing in-kind services matching $95,000 worth of funds.
where's that coming from, revolving account, or?
That's in kind, so it'll be,
Oh, in kind, I'm sorry, okay,
they're gonna do the sewer install.
okay.
Yep. We are also going to try to progress the wayfinding signage project. That right now is estimated between 100 and 110,000. That does fit into the grant program amount. Those are the signs that we're looking to purchase.
Which
The
is
first
great.
phase of that is only a partial of the list of recommended signage, so this would actually get us to completion of the project. And the final one is the Cultural District Planning and Design Support. This is for the Cultural District Designation program through the state, and we're looking at approximately $63,000 to get us through that process. And that is still being reviewed, so it's an approximate, but I don't think it's going to change significantly. I can also tell you that the EDIC and Mass Development are going to be applying for a one-stop grant, and we'll be looking for a letter of support at a later date to demolish some of the remaining buildings on the campus.
Oh, okay.
So that's the whole rundown.
I make a motion that we endorse the letters of support for Community One Stop grant for the applications seen in front of us.
Second,
Further discussion?
I just have a point for my own edification. For the tie-in for the sewer for 6 and 8, it doesn't matter what we do with 6 and 8, right? Because the tie-in would be the same building anyway, right? We don't need
Yeah.
to break them up.
Actually, our grant application is stronger with a potential developer.
Got it.
So the fact that we have a purchase and sale agreement under review.
Even if it's only for one of that
Correct,
property?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it
perfect.
does hurt us a little bit that we don't have one for the second. But in reality, if the utilities were to the building, we might have had a better shot at getting an offer on that building, so
Right.
that's how we're at least
can
presenting.
you remind me what's going on with 8? I know, was that a dual RFP that you had put out, and we only got a proposal for 6?
That's right, we don't have anything on
And
8.
the RFP is expired?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And are we gonna, or what are next steps for that?
If we get the grant for the utilities, I'll put it back out.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it still inhabitable?
At the moment, yes, but with the
Okay.
utilities, it might help,
Okay,
you know, with trying to get somebody in there. I don't think anybody wanted to look at the building and have to put the money into the building as well as
Right.
infrastructure.
Right.
yeah.
We still need to vote.
Okay, so, all
Don
in
made the
favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. 5-0.
All right, well, we're on our way to 8 o'clock here, so I'll keep moving
Yeah.
right along.
All right,
So that puts us into the town manager's report.
yes.
Endorsed warrants. I did attend meetings with the Sports Haven Mobile Home Park team. The construction has been progressing well. The water system will be complete, sometime in June.
Great.
Paving will be going down this summer, at least the first coat of pavement, the top coat of pavement is gonna wait until the project is completely done. We'll have some of the sewer infrastructure in place this year. But that work is not going to be complete until we finalize the funding that we need. We need, well, prior to town meeting, we needed about $1.5 million. At town meeting, we got 250,000 to put towards this project, so we're down around $1.3 million right now. It's another one of my topics for Aaron Saunders tomorrow is to talk about trying to identify a funding source to finally put this project behind us. The Sports Haven Mobile Home Park, which now operate under the Cold Spring Tenants Association,
Yeah.
they cannot assume ownership of this until all of the infrastructure is in place and the Board of Health can permit their facility for operations. So it's important to me that we identify this funding and get it past us because too much time has gone by.
Yeah.
These are human beings. In some cases, they're my friends.
Yeah.
You know, I've developed some really good relationships with these people, and they truly want nothing more than to be part of our community and to be accepted as whole. And I think
As
we're on
they
our way.
should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your work on that.
I've been attending the Capital Improvement Planning Committee meetings. We were working tirelessly right up till day before town meeting. That group really went over and above to get everything together for the town meeting. There's a lot of items on there. I did tell them that our next step is to identify a policy, working with the board, of course, and the Finance Committee, to manage any funds in the future that we may deposit into the Enterprise Stabilization Fund. So they're eager to get going on that. They understood the purpose of it and felt that it was a good idea as well.
Okay.
I've been working on the ADA self-evaluation project with the building inspector. The draft report is available, and there's a lot of recommendations in there. Once that report is finalized, it'll leverage us for ADA improvement grants through the state, and certainly will give us some more projects for the Capital Planning Committee to review. So I'm happy about that as well. I have been meeting with the grants coordinator on grants. Obviously, these one-stop grants are putting a lot of pressure on her right now.
Yeah.
June 3rd is the deadline, and
Yeah.
we're going for a lot of different grants. I did have a meeting with the town administrator from Ludlow. We talked about budgeting and personnel. That was a good meeting. I did attend a meeting with Kuhn Riddle and Ty and Bond to discuss the Tagil feasibility study. They are working on the hybrid approach that the board asked them to look at. They're also looking at the roof for the one-stop grant to help us out with those numbers. The expectation is by the end of June, we'll have everything wrapped up, so they're expecting early June to be coming back in front of the select board with the revised proposals. I've been meeting with Mass Development and some of the members of the EDIC. I did have a follow-up meeting with the team regarding AI implementation and policy approval.
Can you back up to Mass Development? What's the status of the I guess the relationship overall with NHP, Sydney Capital, all of that?
I'm not sure that an official statement has been released yet, so I don't want to answer that.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what the intent is with
Was there
information.
anything else as far as the progress that we can know about right now?
Yeah, so there's a couple things going on. The appraisals of all the different building areas, the plots, if you will, those have been completed. They're just waiting for the final report. I actually received a phone call today from Robert Jenkins. He's looking for some assistance putting some for sale signs up. I told him to ship them, and I'd certainly find some help at the DPW to get them in. So it looks like they're marching forward with the Carriage Grove area. Again, I mentioned the one-stop grant for the building demo. In Parcel D, which the EDIC is working on for the industrial area. As you know, at town meeting, we were authorized to transfer the 10 acres so they can square off the property. We were also, they also authorized the transfer of some property back to the town for open space along the Foley Field, not the Lake Wallace side of it, that property. And when that happens, it'll open up some areas
Next to Crispy's, right?
next to Crispy's for sale. And currently, there's a grant extension agreement that's under review that the board will need to sign off on to allow further progression of the design work on Parcel D. So there's a lot going on. So we've been having, every other Wednesday, I've been having a phone conference with Mass Development just to go over some of these items to keep, the things moving. Because, like your meetings, EDIC meetings oftentimes run long and we want to be able to have, time specifically with the town to make sure that we're all up to date. So thank you for asking, because I know I skimmed over it. So. The AI implementation and policy approval, we have the draft policy, which has been back and forth between the Communications Committee and Town Council.
Yeah.
It's ready to be presented to the Select Board. We're aiming for June 1st. With that in mind, we've been discussing the best way to implement AI throughout the town. We're likely going to offer the employees excuse me, 2 or 3 different options that they can use. And then we'll just kind of gauge to see how things are going.
No one's going to lose their job over AI, though.
No. No, it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
It's not going to replace anybody's job. If anything, it should assist with people being more efficient with their time.
Yeah.
Allow, more rapid review of documents. I always look at it, there's kind of 3 phases. There's drafting a document, writing a document, and finalizing a document. And each of those phases requires a review. Well, AI may be able to eliminate some of those phases, but the final document still needs to be reviewed.
Yeah.
So it doesn't replace somebody, it just helps with getting to the end. And that's about as, simplified as I can make it. It's obviously much more complicated than that.
That's
So yeah, we've made some progress there. And I'm happy that we've had a lot of help from the Communications Committee and Kate, our Communications Director, and Kevin Hannon, our IT Director. I did have a meeting last week with our assessing department about reorganizing duties. As you're aware, a while back, we replaced Jay Wellahan. Zachary Bombard was promoted. We took a hard look at the office, the staffing, the positions, and we essentially took the vacated position that Zach held, and we reorganized his job duties into 2 other positions that were existing within the department. And at the moment, we have reallocated those job duties, and it appears as though we will not have to fill that position. So we're eliminating 1 position in that office. We have very highly qualified people. They were eager to take on that additional responsibility.
Sure.
There was a reclassification of their revised job descriptions that came with that, so we didn't just stick them with work and not have to compensate them fairly for that. And I do think, all in all, it was well received, and I think it's gonna work well. So I'm happy to report that, you know, we've identified some areas where we can put a little back.
That's
You know,
great
to the
job.
budget.
That's
So,
good.
Yeah. So I know it's a little bit of a surprise, but until it was final, I didn't want to announce it publicly.
No.
We did open bids for the Jabesh Brook Trestle Bridge project. We had $95,000 available to us. The low bid came in just under $120,000. So we're about $25,000 over. Don is going to reach out to the Mass Trails Grant program to see if they have any leftover funds from other grants that we can tap into before the end of the fiscal year. If not, I'm going to work with the engineers to revise the scope of work, and we're going to have to rebid. So we're going to lose a little time on it. So, I met with John and Whitney to talk about the food truck policy. We're going to make some final revisions and hopefully get something ready for this year. I think we've put a lot into it, and I don't want to let it just drop. We don't have a lot of people requesting food truck permits outside of events, but I think if it's available and we have it, it'll be there when people do call. On a side note, we did get a request from an ice cream truck vendor to do mobile vending. Evidently, that process goes through the police chief. Bit of a
Ice cream?
Yeah, bit of a learning experience.
Is that
for us.
because of the age of the clientele?
Well, I was hoping it was for sampling purposes. Apparently, in order to operate a ice cream truck, because of the exposure, those vendors have to run through a background check.
Oh,
And then-
of course.
And then the police chief would issue
That's right.
an approval to
We had
operate
one
it
like,
now.
what, 10 years ago, we had an
Yeah.
ice cream truck.
Yeah. So, the chief and I spent a little bit of time on this. I'm just gonna give you a heads up now. In order for him to do a background check on an ice cream vendor, the town would need to have a bylaw in place to allow him to do that,
Really?
and we do not.
That's crazy. Oh my God.
So,
How did we have one 10 years ago then?
well, because the police chief and I like ice cream so much, he was able to find a way to work around it so that the background check can still be performed. So we still know that it's safe, that this person is vetted, and they can operate here in town. So essentially, we're being allowed to use a background check from another community. So
Okay.
that's how we did it. So hopefully, we'll see the ice cream truck shortly. But I just wanted to give the board a heads up that we will be coming in with a request for a bylaw sometime either in the fall, early spring, or next May to put this in place.
Can we get the ice cream truck here
Here.
on Monday night?
Well, maybe that will be the plan. Yes, I'll put a note in for that.
Town meeting, that's what you needed.
There you go.
Yeah.
Telling you, that's my idea,
Ice cream
idea
truck
one
is
of my
town
five.
1 out of 5,
See?
right there.
One
I don't know. I don't know if that, the
Perfect.
Well, I
schools would
think- I
want
think as
ice
soon as
cream
they're-
in their
I think
building.
as soon as they're no longer mobile, they would fall under our food truck policy. So we'll have to be creative about it.
Okay.
Other than that, I've been working on goals and objectives. I'm updating that document, and it's been a busy few weeks with town meeting, so
Yeah.
thank you for all your support. I do think town meeting went off very well.
I do too.
I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but I just want to say that I really have enjoyed working with this group, and I know regardless of the vote tonight, there will be a change in the makeup of the board with, a new chair and vice chair, so I hope that we can continue to work well together and accomplish as much as we have next year as we did this year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, review of weekly mail.
There are 3 things in the mail this week, and I don't need to be the one to call out all 3, but I wanted to just share with the police department getting their accreditation. We got a letter from our veteran service agent, Justin Ruby, introducing himself, and then we have an update on the Allen Road Route 9 situation. Which one is it? Incoming mail.
So I just want to read the first paragraph of the police. So this was to Chief Pacunis and Sergeant Laval. I wanted, and this is from the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission. I wanted to take a moment to let you know that on May 5th, 2026, the MPAC Commission voted to award the Belchertown Police Department with re-accreditation. Congratulations to your staff. And then the letter goes on just to, of some tasks that just need to be completed to administratively wrap that up. So I just wanted to say congratulations there.
And we're one of the only departments around that have that
Yeah.
accreditation with
Yes.
surrounding towns. So
It's
that's
a
a
real-
note out to Chief Pacunis and his
It's a real
staff.
feather in our
Yeah.
cap, it really is.
And then the
And they
other,
work hard for that, it's not easy.
Go ahead.
oh, sorry. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was, so I had asked for an update on what was going on the intersection of Allen Road and Route 9. And so it seems like we're at a point now where additional steps can maybe be looked into. As far as,
Yeah, what I got out of the letter now is Mass DOT has lowered the speed limit
Yep.
from 40 to 35 through the area. They surveyed the intersection and determined that the embankment is not the limiting factor of the sight distance. It's some vegetation that's further up the road. They suggested that the DPW reach out to the homeowners to try to cut that vegetation back. I'm willing to cooperate with that. I do find it interesting that Mass DOT is asking the town to do work within their right-of-way instead of doing it themselves. But I think in the interest of our citizens, we will do that. We won't push back. And
Didn't I read on that one too, that the lowering of the speed limit seemed to help a little?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did say that.
But
They
the
also
speed
said they'd
limit-
maintain the vegetation.
right, but the lowering of the speed limit, and I don't understand how this works, but it's still not enough for the distance of sight line.
Got it.
So
Okay.
lowering it improved how far up you're supposed to be able to see, but not, it's still not sufficient, which is worrisome to me.
Yeah, so we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if they'd be willing to lower it again in the future. But the way the sight lines work is they're based on, you know, the travel time of the vehicle and reaction time, the standard reaction time of a driver.
Yeah.
But is this a matter of who actually takes care of the vegetarian? Who takes
So
care of the?
care of the
Mass
vegetarians.
DOT said they'd maintain the
Okay.
mowing, but they
Okay.
asked us to look into removing the shrubbery.
Okay,
That
That's-
property is a rental, I
Yeah,
believe, that
I think
address.
you're right, so.
So one thing I did want to say though is thank you to Linda and Steve, because if you didn't, I read through the whole string, and if you didn't keep checking in with DOT, it didn't seem like we were going to get anything accomplished.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
I also still feel like this is just not enough.
Yeah.
So I do still want to keep it on the agenda that even if I mean, maybe I'm thinking too extremely, but do we not have any control as a town for a portion of that property that's right on the corner, like to talk about things like a taking or whatever it may be? I mean, this is not the end of the conversation, right?
Yeah, we've looked at it, even when I was at the DPW, we were surveying and looking at it. Part of the problem is the leach field for the septic system is in the front yard facing Route 9. So if we were to cut back into that bank any, we could jeopardize the leach field.
Yeah.
The sewer is available down on Allen Road, on the lower side of Allen Road, about 150, 200 feet away. So one thought would be in the future would be to bring the sewer up across Route 9, tie the house into the sewer, and then
Yep.
we'd be able to abandon the leach field.
would that be, that sounds expensive.
Well, not only is it expensive, but you have to have approval from the property owner, because the work would be done on private property.
Of course.
And when I had discussions with them, they did not want to participate,
Right.
so we didn't pursue it any further. But, you know, things change over time.
Sure.
And maybe that is something we can do. You know, if we find out that the septic system is failing, you know, maybe that would be a window of opportunity for us to get in there. But right now, we're hoping that these minor improvements help.
All right, so I'm just letting everyone know it's 8:04.
Yeah.
Individual board members' reports?
I'm gonna yield my time so we can keep moving.
Okay.
Quickly, we got a $5,000 grant for the skate park through the Quabog Healthy Communities. It was like a micro grant situation.
That's great, congratulations.
The other thing I want to bring up, we can talk about the other stuff, is Memorial Day is this Monday, 8:30 at South Cemetery if you guys want to be there. And if you want to be in the parade, 9:30, we can meet at Finley House. We can march over and do the ceremony for 10 o'clock. If it rains, it's going to be probably in Town Hall.
And Nicole, you're delivering remarks?
Yeah.
In our.
Town hall or church?
I'm not sure yet. We're going to
Okay,
work it out.
yeah, 'cause I don't-
And our guest speaker is going to be retired Senior Master Sergeant from the Air Force, Brandon Floyd.
It was at the church last
Yeah.
year, but
Usually
anyway.
he sends the official letter out. He's new to this, so a lot of stuff
Okay.
is.
But can you send what you
I'll
just
send an
said?
email, yeah.
What you just said?
I just wanted to make sure we get that, and I can update everything on the other stuff.
I'm gonna
And
yield
it's-
my time.
Yield.
Okay, and I'm going to yield my time. Questions from the press?
Not up there.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great meeting, thank you.